starting with the classification of the welding processes. Okay, so what is the purpose of classifying the things? Like any kind of classification that we do uh, is basically for certain regions. The one and foremost is like grouping the things, grouping the like say whatever things, like maybe process, maybe material, maybe anything that you want to classify. So grouping the things based on the some kind of the similarity, which may be in terms of like say the approach or mechanism or the heat source or say ability of particular type. So if that is used as a basis, that is one of the ways, like grouping based on the some kind of the similarity associated with the items which is to be classified. And once this is done, this is the basically the main idea behind the grouping the things based on the similarity of some sort. Okay, the next point is about like ease of communication. Like there are certain tens of the arc welding processes, so those can be put under the category of arc welding process. There are many resistance based welding processes, so they can be put under the resistance welding process. So based on the common factor or the similarity, okay, once these are placed, it is easier to communicate. So what will say ease of communication, so people will easily understand like what kind of the processes and how it will be working. So it may be like radiation based processes where high energy density of the laser or electron beam is involved, or resistance based processes like that. Then another purpose is like when you are bringing developing new process, so you may be incorporating one or other feature, you may be bringing the two different features together also, like that is done in hybridization, where the two different processes are brought together in order to improve the productivity, in order to improve the way by which the things are being done, or in order to improve the quality of the things that are being done. So whenever you develop the new process, it will be easier to give the new name. Okay, so you can say simply ease of naming, ease of giving the new names to the process, grouping the things based on the similarity or ease of communication, and then ease of giving the names to the new processes which are being developed through the hybridization or through use of the fundamental approaches. Then there is one more, I can say, simpler point, like you are able to have the better organization of the different the processes that are there, or different kind of the features that you are classifying, different kind of items that you are classifying. So better organization of the information or the items which are there. So these are, like you say, few purposes which are realized when you try to group or classify certain things. So same is true for the welding processes as well as classification of the welding processes. So there are two broad ways by which we try to classify these. So the classification of these joining processes or welding processes based on the two broad factors. One is like the approach, how we are doing it, whether we are doing it in by fusing the things together, we are doing it through the plastic deformation, or we are doing the developing the joint combination of the heating plus deformation, using the application of the resistance heat. So like that, so there is one broad approach, is like the kind of approach which is one way to classify the welding process is to see which approach we can use it. So based on this, we have like fusion is one, fusion based welding processes. Then the cast is little different, cast welding. Okay, then resistance welding processes, and in this category we have a solid state joining processes. Okay, so here here we have to fuse the fairing surfaces of the components to be joined. Here in cast welding, we feed the molten metal between the two components to be joined from outside source. So molten metal is produced outside and then it is fed between the two components to be joined. Okay, in resistance welding we generate the heat under in situ conditions using the electrical resistance heating principle or Joule heating. And in the solid state joining process we try to deform the things in very controlled way so that the metallic continuity is realized. So basically the plastic deformation coupled with the diffusion and some kind of the recrystallization and metallurgical transformation, all those will be happening when the solid state joining is performed. So this is one way. The second approach is here where we use some kind of the technological factors or technical factors associated with the process. So the technical factors associated with the different process, like in this category we have like whether we will be using the filler metal or not. Okay, so the processes which use filler or don't use filler. Then what kind of the heat source is being used, whether it is radiation based or electrical resistance or arc or like the gas or combustion, chemical reaction, etc. So based on the kind of energy which is being used for developing the joint, then there is a whether we use the arc or no arc kind of the joining process. Okay, and the third and the next fourth one is whether there is a fusion or just the deformation or the pressure welding. So fusion or pressure welding, this is one. Arc and no arc is another. Heat source, type of heat source is third, and fourth is the filler, whether we use filler or no filler is used. Let me talk little bit more about these little in detail. So say as I said, based on the approach we have got the fusion, cast weld, resistance weld and solid state joining. So like in fusion welding, in any case to develop the joint you have to achieve the molten state, you have to melt the edges to be joined, and this is done obviously through the use of the suitable heat source. So the fusion or the melting of the fine surfaces is realized and subsequently on solidification you get the joint. Okay, and this is what is done in all those processes, whether it is arc welding based, multiple arc welding processes. Then there is a gas welding where gas flame is used for the purpose of melting the fine surfaces to be joined. Then there is a radiation based, say in case of your the laser and electron beam. In all these processes we have to fuse the edges of the components to be joined. So this is one. The second is cast weld, as I said. So in cast weld, between the two components to be joined, what we do, we feed the molten metal from outside source. So it is just filled in here, and after the solidification we get the joint. Heat, molten metal is not produced under the in situ conditions, but it is fed from outside, and this is what is done typically in case of the thermite welding. Okay, other examples are like the electro slag and electro gas welding. These are the other processes where the molten metal is actually the fed. Also still there are some contradictions also. This is not because in this process it is developed in situ conditions, but the conditions are similar to that of the thermite welding. We don't feed the molten metal from outside in electro slag and electro gas welding, but the cooling conditions are similar to that of the casting. That's why it is also grouped as a cast weld process. Typically the most the direct classification of thermite welding falls under the cast weld, where molten metal is produced outside and then it is fed between the components to be joined. Okay, then the next is the resistance welding. So in all these resistance welding processes, what we do, we supply the supply the current. So at the contact interface, due to the high Ra value, I square RT heating takes place significantly. So it is mostly done in the lap welding configuration, lap joint configuration, but it can mean butt joining also, like in some of the resistance based welding processes. So the processes like the spot welding, seam welding, projection welding, stud welding, and the high frequency resistance welding and high frequency induction welding. In all these cases, the electrical resistance heating principle is used, like I square RT heating principle is used for developing the heat desired, so that you get the plastic deformation. This is one. And interfacial melting. Interfacial melting is also realized. So typical joint shows a structure like this. Here you get the molten metal here at the interface that will be leading to the development of metallurgical joint. At the same time, the forging action under the pressure also helps to facilitate the the plastic deformation. The plastic consolidation through the plastic deformation coupled with the interfacial melting leads to the development of the resistance weld joint. In case of the solid state joining, you see there are two broad categories. One is the low heat input process, okay, and another is a high heat input process. High heat input process. So in the low heat, the temperature rise is very negligible, like in case of the ultrasonic welding or explosive welding or cold welding. Rise in temperature is hardly, it's not very significant. But in case of the high heat input welding process, like the friction welding or your diffusion bonding, the heat input is really significantly high, okay. The forge welding is the another example of the high heat input process. So this is what you can say. This classification is based on the approach, like the fusion, cast welding, resistance, heating, or solid state joining. So in case of solid state joining, basically it is the mechanical interlocking between the two. That is one. Like say you take the two components and these are either explosive welded or ultrasonically welded, so there will be intermixing of the two metals from both the sides at micro level. So intermixing here it will be leading from the two metals will be leading to the development of the joint like this. So but this is also coupled with the diffusion. So diffusion coupled with the mechanical interlocking caused by the mechanical deformation at the interface are the mechanisms responsible for development of the solid state joints, okay. So when in case of low heat input process, the heat generation is very limited, so the compromise with the joint properties or the base metal properties is very negligible, but it is significantly high in case of the high heat input processes like the friction welding, diffusion bonding, and the forge welding, okay. So that's what was about the approach based classification. Then based on the technical factors, classification based on the technical factors or technological factors. So here, like say the filler based one, the first parameter here is, okay, so the whether it is based on the filler. So you can say the welding process is with filler, okay, and without filler. So obviously there are a number of processes where we don't use filler from outside. So like joining of the thin sheets. Thin sheets joined using the TIG process, TIG weld, tungsten gas welding, or the laser welding or electron welding, or likewise there is a friction welding. Normally we don't use anything from outside. So in these cases, you see these processes where we don't use anything from outside, they are typically known as the autogeneous welding, okay. So TIG welding, thin sheets, basically where your section thickness is very fine and you find that just plastic deformation at the interface or little melting followed by solidification will be giving you the desired joint. So it's fine for thin sections. And sometimes nature of the process is such that you you are not in position to use the filler. That may be example of like say resistance welding, where what we do, the two sheets are kept in overlapping position and through the electrode the current is passed, okay, through this piece at the interface. The R value is high, so your high heat generation at the interface leads to the partial and localized melting. So that's how it is done. So there is a limited possibility or no possibility for use of the filler. So normally we don't use filler in resistance welding, but in case of the dissimilar metal welding, it can be used to get the desired set of the metallurgical properties at the interface, so that we can realize the desired strength and the toughness of the resistance weld joints. So that is all. Otherwise, with the filler, there are a number of processes where the filler either you add from outside or it is inbuilt. Like say in the gas metal arc welding, it is also known as MIG welding process. Okay, there is a shielded metal arc welding, SMAW process, submerged arc welding. So in the flux core arc welding, FCAW, in all these processes, the electrode consumption is very much part of the welding process. So in any case, whenever there is welding is performed, the filler metal will automatically be added. Okay, and that's why these are very used for you can say little thicker sections, number one, and you are able to fill the gap very easily. You don't need to fill you don't need to supply the filler from outside additional. You don't need to supply the filler additionally other than the welding process. Like in case of the laser, if you see, so the filler has to be added like this. So you can use it. Like in GTAW also, there is an arc, and we don't use the filler. The electrode doesn't consume, so the filler has to be added if the thick section welding is performed. So the filler is to be fed in those cases. So there are certain welding processes where the filler is inherent part of the process itself, like MIG welding, submerged arc welding, shielded metal welding, flux core arc welding, etc. But with some other processes like TIG welding, we may feed the filler extra if for joining of thicker sections. So those processes like the plasma arc welding, TIG welding, laser or electron beam welding, in these processes we can feed the filler from outside, especially when we are developing the dissimilar metal joint or thick sections are to be joined. So the filler is needed to fill up the gap so that the sound weld joint is developed. So that is what about the with filler or the without filler. Okay. Then coming to the another like the energy source. Okay, the source of the heat source or the source of the energy which is used. So on this like we have the chemical reactions, chemical energy, you can say mechanical energy, and then there is electrical energy, the kind of the energy which is being used, electrical energy, and the radiation. Okay. So in chemical energy, like we use oxyacetylene plus oxygen chemical reaction happen, exothermic reaction will be leading to the development of enough heat for fusion. So the gas welding is one example. Thermite welding, where again the reaction between the some kind of alumina and the metal which is reducing agent, acts as a reducing agent, leads to the chemical interactions of alumina or magnesium oxide. So these react, they interact with each other chemically and lead to the development of the exothermic heat, which in turn develops the which helps in fusing the fine surfaces to develop the joint. So thermite welding is another. Gas welding is the known. Then explosive welding is also an example where chemical reaction, chemicals like TNT or other explosives are used for explosion to happen, so that resulting impact helps to develop the joint. Okay. In mechanical, like the forge welding, then forge welding, and then friction welding, ultrasonic welding. In all these processes, mechanical energy is used for development of the joint. Electrical energy, like in welding arc, then there is a resistance welding, then there is a electro slag welding, electro gas welding. In all these processes, electrical energy is used for generating the desired heat and developing the joint. In radiation based, basically there are two only, like laser and the electron beam. Okay, so this classification is based on the kind of the energy source which is being used. Then the last two simpler the factors are like there is a arc, so all arc based processes and non arc processes. So this is very simple classification. Like your all arc based processes, for example GMAW or MIG welding, like GTAW or TIG welding, okay, SMAW, wherever there is an arc, all those will be falling in this category. Your plasma arc welding, okay, submerged arc welding, etc., all these will be falling in this arc category. Non arc, where the joint is developed, enough heat is generated but not through the arc. So your resistance welding, your thermite welding, and your gas welding, your the laser and electron beam, all these are the like non-arc processes, okay, which are used for generating the heat or to facilitate the deformation. Likewise, solid state deformation process also will be falling in this category, solid state joining based processes. So the lastly we have the fusion and the pressure welding. So the in fusion welding, all those where some kind of the fusion under the gravity is happening, followed by the solidification. So all those processes where the solidification happens under the gravitational force. Okay, just like say in open condition. In pressure welding, like say where there is either no fusion, or primarily it is deformation, or even if there is a fusion, it occurs under pressure, okay, under pressure solidification. So like if you take the example of the resistance welding, you are fusing but solidification is happening under pressure. So this is falling under the resistance pressure welding process, where the things are fusing but the solidification is happening under the pressure. So non-fusion welding processes where either deformation or diffusion, or even if the fusion is taking place, solidification is occurring under pressure. So all those will be coming under the pressure welding. So you can say solid state joining process, ultrasonic, explosive welding, resistance welding, friction welding, all those will be coming under the your pressure welding category. Okay, so that's how we complete our the classification related thing. You can see it. I have already shared the links related to this. Maybe you can go through for more details. The next one is about our arc. Hopefully you'll be able to understand it in better way if I explain this here. Like arc is an electric discharge. Like say this is the base metal. So for establishing the arc, it is important then there is this power source. Okay, usually the electrode, this is the electrode and this is the base metal. Okay, both base metals. So for here usually it is connected to the negative terminal of the power source, and the workpiece is connected to the positive terminal of the power source. Okay, so in case of the DC, in case of AC it will be happening alternatively. So say the electrode, when it is connected to the negative terminal, we call it as a cathode, and the workpiece becomes the anode. So what happens when there is enough power with the sufficient desired voltage across the electrode and the base metal? So under the favorable condition, what happens, like at the tip of the electrode like this, okay, the electrons are emitted, and these electrons which are being emitted, they will be attracted towards the anode. So these electrons will be moving towards the anode. Okay, so whenever there is a generation of the electrons, there will be these electrons will be attracted and will be moved towards the anode. Okay, in during their journey, these electrons, high velocity moving electrons, during their journey will be colliding with the different gaseous molecules which are present in the gap between the electrode and the workpiece. So these will get ionized, decomposed into the again electron and the positive ions. Okay, so now you will have both electrons and positive ions in the gap. The electrons will be moving towards the anode and the positive ions will be moving towards the cathode. Electrons being lighter significantly than the ions, so they move at a very high speed and they impact with the surface of the anode, and that's how the heat is generated. So the heat generation due to the impact of the electrons, while the slow moving heavy ions will be impacting with the uh, cathode. So somewhat less heat is generated on the cathode side. So the point is here very simple: high velocity moving electrons impacting the base metal, generating the high heat input. On the other hand, the low velocity and slowly moving ions will be impacting with the cathode, will be generating the less heat. So out of the total heat generated by the arc, uh, about two-thirds of the heat is generated on the anode side, that is the workpiece, and one-third of the heat is generated on the cathode side, that is the electrode. Okay, so in case of consumable arc welding, this electrode will be melting slowly and base weld metal will be melting faster rate. Okay, so this is the simple logic. When we find that there is a scarcity or deficiency, so this is true for DC welding, like you get on the cathode side, you get about one-third of the heat generated by the arc, okay, that you can get from the VI, and on the anode side you get the two-third of the heat generated of the VI, that is the arc heat. Okay, so the power of arc, how we are getting the power of arc, we are establishing a arc voltage of V and facilitating the flow of current I. So the power arc of arc is simply given by VI. Okay, the voltage and the current, two-third of the this heat being generated per unit time, that's per second, that will be on the anode side when we use the straight polarity, or your electrode is negative and workpiece is positive. Okay, so if you see here, since the welding arc is an electric discharge between the electrode and the workpiece, and the flow of the current has to happen through the gap between the electrode and workpiece to the conducting, there has to be enough conductivity between the electrode tip and the workpiece, and this is possible only through the presence of these charged particles. So there has to be sufficient particle density of these charged particles in the gap between the electrode and the workpiece. When we find that the particle density has got down very badly to the lower levels, then arc will get extinguished, arc will become unstable. So for the flow of current, in any case you need little conductivity, and that conductivity will be facilitating the flow of current for under the given potential difference. So the current flow I will be taking place. But if the conductivity is reduced drastically, then the flow of current will not be happening and arc will get extinguished. Okay. So it is very important, like in case of the DC, when the flow of current is constant in terms of the magnitude, and its direction is also constant. So magnitude and the direction of the DC both are constant, and that's why once if you have established the arc, it will continue to, the current flow will continue to happen, and the arc will be able to generate the heat consistently to achieve the desired penetration and melting. But in case of the DC, the things are different. You see, the magnitude and the direction both are fluctuating, it passes through the zero level also, so means for a while there is no flow of current. Okay, so when you come across a situation when there is no flow of current in case of the AC welding, your arc will be getting extinguished just for a very short time. That is why what you will be noticing, that the in case of the AC, where the current for a while becomes zero, and its magnitude and direction both are changing, they are not constant, and these two things make the arc stability very poor. Okay, so the arc stability in AC welding is poor because of these two features. One is it passes through the zero current, zero voltage levels, and the second, the magnitude and the current both change in terms of both change in case of the AC welding, and this makes the stability of the welding arc very poor, and that is why it is very easy to strike the arc and do the welding using DC as compared to the AC. Further, as I said, in case of the DC, two-thirds of the heat is generated on the anode side and one-third heat is generated on the cathode side. But in case of the AC, you see, the things will keep on changing on every half cycle. Means one which was cathode now becomes the anode, and one which was anode becomes the cathode. So the heat generation in case of the AC, heat generation is equal. There is nothing like the more heat or less heat in case of that AC welding. Okay, so when you want that there is a more heat or less heat, you have to go for the DC welding. Like say, if you want to weld very thin sheet or very thick sheets, then you should use the DC welding, because it allows you to use the suitable heat generation at the desired side, whether it is base metal or the work or the electrode. But that option, that feature, that flexibility doesn't exist with the AC. So this is one advantage of the DC, that it allows to generate the desired amount of heat, more or less heat, on either on the workpiece side or on the electrode side as per your convenience. But in case of the DC, it is not so. Second aspect, the DC current magnitude, direction and the magnitude of the current remains constant in DC. That's why you get very stable and smoother arc, while the arc stability is very low in case of the AC welding. Okay, that's why the AC welding is found to be more difficult as compared to the DC welding. Okay, irrespective of the process, you can take it any process, any arc welding process. Okay, now coming to this the heat generation aspect, I would like to talk a little more about this the charge density, the particle density, and the arc power related thing. Okay, so this is the electrode. Like say in non-consumable electrodes like a TIG welding, okay, or plasma arc welding, this is made of the tungsten, which doesn't get melt during the welding process. So what we want, that this remains at low temperature, it doesn't get melt, otherwise it will be damaged. So we want low heat generation in the electrode side in case of the GTAW plasma welding, tungsten arc welding, tungsten inert gas welding, or the plasma arc welding process. Low heat generation is needed, is desired. So in any case, we'll be going for the straight polarity, that is negative electrode and positive workpiece. Okay, so as far as the polarity is concerned, these are the simple things like the DC SP, okay, or it is also known as DC EN. So both are same. DC electrode negative, okay, or this is also known as this state polarity, DC state polarity, and the DC RP is for the reverse polarity, and in this case we make the electrode positive. Okay, so DC EP is for the electrode positive. So in this case, electrode side you will be having 2/3 of the heat, and in the first case you will be having the 2/3 of heat generation on the workpiece side. Okay, so if in case of TIG welding or in plasma welding, we will be looking for more DCEN, so that less heat is generated, DCEN, so that less heat is generated on the electrode side, so that it doesn't get damaged easily. At the same time, more heat generation on the workpiece side helps to melt and achieve the desired the welding. Okay, this is one aspect. Okay, if you see if you see, if you want that the electrode melts at a faster rate and the gap between the base metals to be joined is filled in very fast, in that case we will be looking for a reverse polarity, like where this is made the workpiece is made negative and the electrode is made positive. Okay, like this. Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
it's
it's
fine.
fine.
Okay, fine. So say there is a power source, this is a terminal. Okay, say negative terminal and positive terminal, this is the electrode. Okay, this is the welding arc and the base metals. So you see, if you just this is a power source, and if you just measure the potential difference across these two terminals, then this is what we call it, this can be set at different levels, open circuit voltage, OCV. Okay, and when this is connected to the negative terminal of the electrode, negative terminal is connected to the electrode and positive terminal is connected to the workpiece. So there is some voltage drop because of the resistance for the flow of current in these cables and electrode. So the potential difference across the workpiece and the electrode tip is known as arc voltage. Okay, so there is a little difference. Open circuit voltage may be say 20 volt, okay, and arc voltage may be 18 volt, it is little less, and this 2 volt is accounted for the the voltage drop due to the resistance for the flow of current through the cables and the electrode or the electrode holder, etc. This is one aspect. The second, even through this there is a lot of how does this voltage drop occurs. So if you see, the electrode is not melting, say it is cool, it is at low temperature. This is the plasma where you have negative and positive terminals, like positively charged particles like this, and this is your base metal. Okay, so here your melting will be happening. So if you just try to see that how does this voltage drop is taking place across the electrode tip and the base metal. So this is a increasing distance from the tip, distance from the electrode tip. Okay, so since the electrodes are of the low temperature, their particle density, charge particle density is low, and here also charge particle density is low, temperature is minimum, and therefore what you will notice that the resistance for the flow of current is more in these zones next to the electrode and next to the workpiece because of the low charge particle density. That's why the voltage drop on the workpiece side, which is anode, we will say voltage drop VA on the anode side, and voltage drop on the cathode side is VC, and in between whatever voltage drop is taking place across the plasma, that is VP, that is fairly constant. So the voltage drop is extremely sharp near the electrode tip, like say it is very sharp, like then it becomes constant. Then again as it reaches close to the anode, again it decreases sharply. So the sharp here you can say the voltage drop in y-axis and increasing distance from the electrode tip. So this VC, this is VC, and this is your VA. Okay, VA. In between you have VP. So you can say most of the voltage drop, if you see it is very gradual, the voltage drop is very constant in the plasma zone, but it is very sharp in case of the in vicinity of the you can say cathode and in vicinity of the anode. So as I said, the power of arc is given by, power of welding arc is given by VI. So V is composed of what? VC plus VP plus VA into I. So if you just solve it further, VC is into I will give you the heat generated at the cathode. VP will give you, VPI will give you the heat generated at the plasma zone, and heat generated at the anode is VAI. So in this kind of polarity, the heat, the melting of the base metal is being dictated primarily by the VAI, the voltage drop which is taking place uh, in the base metal side or in the anode side. Okay, so this is about the electrical aspect of the welding arc. Okay, the sharp voltage drop in vicinity of the cathode as well as anode, and the gradual and stable voltage drop in cross the plasma. Okay, but if you see here, in case of the non-consumable arc welding process like TIG welding or your plasma welding, where electrode doesn't melt, okay, still some heat is generated, you know. So here in TIG welding or in plasma welding, where there is no melting of the electrode, so heat generated in the plasma zone is of no use. Only part of the heat will be used, because most of the heat will be lost to the surrounding air, and the heat being generated is the VA into I only, that will be used. Vp into I, only fraction of the heat is used in heat being generated in the plasma is very small portion which is used, and this one is certainly of no use. Heat generated at the cathode side is not of no use, so it will simply be damaging to the electrode tip only. So we have to maintain the temperature of the electrode tip using the suitable supply of the welding water cooling or air cooling kind of thing. So now you have seen the polarity. There is DC RP, or this is also known as DC EP, electrode positive, or DC SP, state polarity, or this is also known as DC EN, electrode negative. Okay, and alternative current AC. There is no fixed polarity, it will keep on changing. So this polarity basically affects the generation of the heat on the electrode side or on the base metal side. That's one I have already explained, about 2/3 and 1/3 of the heat generation. And it also affects the arc stability, because in case of the AC, the current will keep on fluctuating, its magnitude and the direction keep on changing, as well as it passes through the zero level also, so that makes the arc stability little poor. Another aspect as far as the polarity is concerned, which case you will have the better arc stability, whether you use DCRP or DCEP. So if you see this case, filler metals or electrodes, you see this is the electrode, okay, this is filler metal also. So filler metal it may be bare electrode like aluminum or steel, or it can be electrode where it is coated. So when the electrodes you can design, but base metal is the purpose. The given base metal is to be welded, where electrode you can choose as per the process. Okay, so the electrode can be designed for good electron emission capabilities. Like tungsten has got very good electron emission capability. Whenever it is connected to the power supply and the sufficient voltage is given, it emits the electron and it gives a very good stable arc. But the electrodes can also be other electrodes also can be engineered by providing the suitable coatings, and in these coatings what we do, we try to fill up, we try to incorporate the certain the low ionization potential elements, low work function elements like sodium and potassium. So these will be having the low work function, low ionization potential. These facilitate the electron emission very easily. Once the electrons are emitted easily, then your arc stability is good, because there will be a lot of charged particles in the arc gap. So, but these benefits can be exploited only if you are making the electrode negative, and there is no as such any benefit of if you make the electrode workpiece negative. So the state polarity where electrode is negative and workpiece is positive, all the benefits related with the electrode fluxes and the good electron emitting capability of the filler metal, all those can be exploited. But the base metals may not have necessarily the good electron emission capability, and therefore if we use the DCRP, so means DCRP means your electrode is workpiece. Workpiece is expected to emit the electrons, so which may not be good electron emitting element or electron emitting metal. So in this case, most of the time we find that the stability of the arc is poor because you don't have enough charge particle density, and therefore when we use the DCEN or DC state polarity, okay, the arc stability is good. But when we use the DCEP, electrode positive or reverse polarity, it is poor because your arc stability is poor because you are totally relying on the electron emitting capability of the base metal itself, which may not be true. Okay, and this is what we try to learn from the ionization potential and work function of the different elements. So about this probably I'll be talking in the next lecture about the electron emitting capability.